China's Pan Zhanle came away as one of the faces of the Paris Olympics, powered by his monster world record in the men's 100 freestyle, and so far we've seen him swim through the first two stops of the World Aquatics Swimming World Cup, and so far the results have been maybe not exactly what we were expecting. During the first stop in Shanghai, we saw Pan contest three events: the 100 IM, the 100 free, and the 200 free. On the first day of competition, we saw Pan in that non-traditional 100 IM event. We've actually seen Pan contest this event before, including at the 2022 Short Course World Championships. Well, Pan was significantly faster in Shanghai as we saw him drop almost a second and a half and place 6th in the final, which for a freestyle specialist is pretty good. The next day, we saw Pan's signature 100 freestyle. Many were curious what he'd be able to do in short course after he completely blew the doors off of this event in long course this summer. But many were surprised when Pan got out-touched by Italian Thomas Chacon, who used some outside smoke to win the event by 3 100s after qualifying for the final by winning a swim-off in the morning. Pan had a slight lead over Chacon and the rest of the field at the first 50, flipping in a 22-19, but then Chacon slowly overtook Pan and won the race 46-32 to 46-35. The next morning, Pan barely missed the final in the 200 free, finishing 9th by a mere 6 100ths. 1 week later, at the next stop in Incheon, we saw Pan Zhanle back in action again, but this time with a new event lineup. On day 1, Pan got his first win of the World Cup in the 400 freestyle. At the start of the race, South Korea's Kim Woo-min took the early lead. This is unsurprising. It's how Kim loves to swim his races, and he held that lead through the first 200 meters, but then at the 250 mark he had faded to 5th as that opening speed severely caught up with him. Pan, meanwhile, had been turning in 4th at nearly every single turn, and that fact held true at the 350 mark with just 50 meters left. But over the next 25, Pan took off and pulled himself into 2nd, just 8 100s behind Duncan Scott. Pan continued to pull away on the final 25 and touched first in a 3:36.43. Fresh off of a victory in the 400, Pan was up the next day in the 100 free. After such an impressive swim in a massive personal best, it was perhaps surprising that Pan was a little slower than his Singapore time, finishing in 4th in a 46.80. It's also notable that the field as a whole was a touch slower this time around, with the winning time of 46.48 being a bit slower than what both Pan and Chacon were just 1 week prior. On the final day, we saw another new event from Pan, where instead of contesting the 200 free, he would be going all the way up to 800. We saw what he did on the final 50 of that 400, so could he do it again in double the distance? Just like in the 400, it was Kim Woo-min who set the early pace as he blasted ahead of the rest of the field and held nearly a 2-second lead for the first half of the race. Unlike the 400 where Pan lurked in 4th for most of the race, he too broke away from the rest of the field chasing Kim, and with Pan in lane 8 and Kim in lane 2, these two would be dueling from across either side of the pool. After the halfway point, Pan started slowly but surely tracking Kim down, weathering away at his lead until the 600 meter mark where he finally took over. He held on to that lead for the rest of the race, and just like in the 400, he found another gear on that final 50 and increased his lead to touch first in a 7:35.30. That time sits as a new Chinese and World Cup record. So Pan Zhanle, the Olympic champion and world record holder in the long course 100 free, has so far found more success in short course in the 400 and 800 meter freestyles than his signature distance. Why? There could be a couple of reasons, so let's explore them. The first and the most obvious one is simply a lack of rest. With this being an in-season meet, it is highly unlikely that any swimmers here have any meaningful amount of rest to target the series. Some swimmers are really good at just swimming fast all the time. Other swimmers swim slow all season and then drop a bunch of time once they finally get to rest. It's really different for everyone. Another thing to consider is that for sprinters in particular, it is very common for them to lack that raw speed and explosiveness when they're tired in season, impacting those events more. This seems to be the case for Pan as well. Taking a look at the all-time rankings in his events shows maybe more objectively that the 400 and 800 swims he's had so far were just more impressive. Pan's best time in the 100 free short course right now is a 45.77 from the 2022 Short Course World Championships, which currently lands him as the 25th fastest performer of all time. Meanwhile, his in-season swims in the 400 and 800 free freestyles now have Pan sitting as the 18th and the 24th fastest performer of all time. Or we can compare Pan's swims using the World Aquatics Aqua Point system. The way this system works is that the world record in an event is worth 1,000 points, with the points decreasing the further away you get, so a better swim is just worth more points. Between Pan's swims and the 100, 400, and 800 freestyles, his point total in the 100 of 905 is notably lower than the totals of 923 and 943 in the 800 and 400. Between the all-time rankings, the Aqua points totals, as well as just winning races, it seems pretty clear that Pan was much better over the longer races. And like I said, this feels pretty clear like it's just a sign of heavy training in season. But what if the course played a role as well? Short course swimming is very reliant on underwater kicking. It's the fastest way to move through the water, and with twice as many walls, you can be underwater for twice as long. Pan is certainly good at underwater kicking. I think it's basically impossible to win the 100 freestyle at the Olympics these days without being at least good at everything. But I would not put underwaters as one of his primary strengths, the way you would for someone like Leon Marchand. The portion of races where Pan gains significant distance on his competitors is done over the water. That over the water speed and efficiency is his biggest strength. With more walls in short course, it could be a possibility that it's interrupting Pan's ability to build his speed throughout any given length, as well as the fact that if any competitors are really good underwater, they could stop Pan from getting too far away. We've seen a similar thing in the past with Adam Peaty, who despite being dominant in the sprint breaststrokes in long course is not at quite that same level in short course. The thing that propels him ahead of the rest of the world is what he does once he surfaces. This could also explain Pan's better swims in the longer distance events, because once you get over about 200 meters, races become a lot less about ripping crazy fast underwaters, and you'll see swimmers surface earlier to get back into their stroke rhythm, which by extension means that Pan is better able to capitalize on his strengths to pull away from the rest of the field. It is also worth remembering that despite being known for his 100 freestyle ability these days, Pan has a background as a very capable distance swimmer from when he was younger. He's even kept the 400 free in his long course program for some national level competitions as well as the Asian Games. In 2023 at the Asian Games, he placed second in that event behind Kim Woo-min, who somehow keeps popping up in this video. Realistically, examining Pan's short course performances right now is still heavily rooted in speculation due to a pretty small sample size. All we're really working with right now is 2 World Cup stops as well as a short course Worlds from 2 years ago, after which he has massively improved as a swimmer. I think the biggest factor right now is wherever Pan is in his training, and we'll almost certainly see some big drops when short course Worlds rolls around. It'll just be a matter of how much. I would personally love if Pan did something completely ridiculous like break 44 and make the back half of this video kind of irrelevant. One thing that I'm really curious about right now after those 400 and 800 swims is, will he keep some longer distances on the program for short course Worlds, or will he go down to just the shorter end of things? Personally, I hope he keeps at least 1 or 2 on the program, because I think it's been really fun to watch so far. What event lineup do you think he's gonna go with, and how fast do you think he's gonna go in the 100 free once he has some time to rest? Let me know down below.